Hey, hey, I'm Matt Hudgens, and this is I'm Matt Hudgens. He's Dave Mulvaney, and this is Profitability MD. How you doing today, Dave? I'm sorry, the
Matt,
machine was talking to me.
I'm doing great, but I've never had the Zoom lady say this meeting is being recorded.
Me neither. That's what threw me off. I'm sorry.
It threw us for an. This is episode 127, and she's never said that to us.
She's never said that to us. So episode 127, should I sell my business? Right? Should I sell my business? And we'll start by this. On a sad note, my father-in-law passed away earlier this week. Passed away of Alzheimer's. Sad. Probably one of those blessings in disguise, all that. A great man, a wonderful businessman, successful 3 businesses. But I was talking with you pre-dialogue before this happened about there are probably sometimes in his life that he should have sold a particular business at a particular time in life, right? And so I just thought what got us talking is, should I sell my business, or when should I sell my business, or should I sell my business? And, I'll start off with him, and his kind of stuff was, in the 90s was a peak. He had a temporary services firm, actually contract labor, and it was a great time to sell, right? Market valuations were great or super high. That was in the late 90s. The stock market was doing great. Businesses were doing great. The economy was doing great. Multiples, what people are willing to pay, was doing great. Money was cheap because they could borrow money to buy your business. It would have been an excellent time to sell, especially when you look back now and say, well, gosh, that literally was the peak, late 90s, I think 97, 98.
And it's funny, temporary labor or temporary service businesses, they were so popular back then, and it almost seems like they could become popular again, because right now there's a labor shortage. Like there's these companies don't have.
Oh, they're going gangbusters. Yeah, I've got a client right now who has tech contract labor, 6 to 24 months, 6 months, 24 months, technology, going gangbusters right now.
So the temporary service industry provided labor to fill those jobs, and the companies didn't have to make a long-term commitment to an employee. So they didn't necessarily get 401k and all of that because they didn't technically work for the company. So yeah. I think some laws were changed. So let's go into
now. Yeah, these kids now, they want to go work for 6 months to 2 years and then take 6 months off, because these computer programs especially, they can go work at a gig for 6 months to 2 years, get paid a bunch of money, and then they go take 3 months off, 6 months off, and because they know they can find another contracting gig next time. But back to our subject, which was, when do I sell? Because I had another friend of mine sell his investment advisory business early this year. Another one who's looking at it now. We have a friend who sold the bug business earlier this year. Anyway, so when is it the right time to sell? Or should I sell my business, right?
So, one of the things I think that comes to mind is, here's, we often try to hang on too long. Right. When I think, and I'm speaking firsthand, I hung on too long on a business that I should have sold. I had multiple opportunities to sell, and it wasn't because of the money that I didn't want to sell. One of the reasons I didn't want to sell was because, well, what am I going to do? So instead of just taking the money and, take the money and run, as they say, I was also considering my employees and other things. But the reality is, a buyout at the time when I had an offer would have been better long-term, because there would have been a bigger company that came in and had more products and services, and they would have bought our customer base and our sales force and everything like that. So sometimes I think it comes from, you have to be realistic with yourself on your ability to continue to grow the business, and so in your father-in-law's case, I think you would have to be honest with yourself in terms of where the industry is. I think you have to look at where your business is and where the industry as a whole is. I mean, can you continue to grow inside of an industry?
Yeah. And I think there are stuff, what is my business worth, right? That's a common question. And so I'm working on a client right now where we're doing a valuation, not a full-fledged valuation. I used to do M&A. So I'm doing what I'm calling a valuation light. I can go look up the multiples, and here's what businesses in your industry sells. I know how to go and look back through your P&L line. Remember, we wrote a whole book, and we've done 3 episodes on finding profits in your profit and loss statement, right? So we can look through your P&L and see how you compare to the industry average and kind of get what is your business worth, right? And then we've always talked about building a business to sell it, even if you don't want to sell it, because I always say you could sell your business or you could retire in your business, which means you could set your business up so that it's kind of self-sufficient running business. You're only doing the things you like, your A+ activities, your unique abilities. And if you're just doing that, then maybe you wouldn't want to retire because you've set the business up, right? So there's that aspect to it. But there are times when people are just paying a lot of money for your business, right? That whatever, lawn care businesses are selling for super high multiples right now. I could sell it and then I'll just get back in the business 3 years from now in my non-compete. So there are times when people pay a lot more for this type of business than usual. And that's another time to evaluate. There's the personal time. Like you said, what else am I going to do, right? A lot of, if you have something, or you're going to figure it out, or maybe you already have something in mind. Like we were talking about, you could go be a coaching and consulting, right? So we're talking about, I run this type of business, and then I'm going to sell it, but then I'm going to coach others how to grow and sell their business in the similar industry or a different industry that is similar. Chiropractors and doctors' offices and dentist offices are a lot alike. So maybe you could be a chiropractor who decides to sell because the multiples are high, but then you go coach other chiropractors how to grow their business, right? We've got a friend in Strategic Coach who does that. He has a chiropractor business. He hasn't sold it, but he also coaches other chiropractors how to grow their business. So, but you got to know, what's my business truly worth? What changes can I make to increase the value of my business? We've talked about that many times. That's really what we're coaching you to do, right? Wouldn't you like to find an extra $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in your business?
Which can equate to hundreds of thousands on the sales side.
Yeah, because you get a multiple.
So if you increase your profitability by $100,000, that might be, depending on the multiple in your business, it might be
3 to 5 times is typical
in your pocket.
Yeah. Now, what's also interesting though is I call it the owner's dilemma. So most private businesses sell for 3 to 5 times cash flow. Okay, so if you make $100,000 a year, I'm just using that, someone is going to pay you $300,000 to $500,000. That's a standard number. It might be smaller. Dentistry is smaller. Dentistry, it's 67% of revenue, which is about a year and a half worth of income. So if you're making $100,000, they're going to pay you $150,000, right? CPA firms sell for 1.1 times revenue, 35% margins. That's still in that. That's actually in that 3 to 5 times cash flow.
Not like in the dentist office, and I don't know this for because I've never worked with a dentist to sell their business. Do they get their 1.5 times their revenue plus their equipment? And
no, it's part of the business. That's a great one too. So I'm looking at evaluation right now. This is really interesting, which is he was thinking I could sell the business, and then I got the inventory I can sell, and then I've got the cash that I have in the business, and then I have the real estate, right? And the answer is yes and no, right? So when you run a business that requires inventory, that sales price pretty much includes the inventory you already got in there. So this guy has $1.5 million worth of inventory. So he was thinking, oh, I can sell the business for, I'm just making up numbers. I can sell the business for $4 million, and then I got $1.5 million worth of inventory. So I'm selling the business for 5.5. Plus I got a million in cash. So then I get to keep that as well. And then I got the real estate that's worth $2 million and I can sell that. Okay. That's too many piecemeals. What really happens is if somebody looks at your business, they're going to say, well, the business, it needs $1.5 million in inventory to run, or does it, right? Maybe it only needs $500,000, but if I'm looking at your business, I'm going to say, well, gosh, Dave, it looks the last 3 years, you've had $1 million in cash and $1.5 million in inventory. So I'm buying your business for $4 million because that's what the valuation, it's, whatever, X times 4 times cash flow is the numbers in this business, in this scenario. But that 4 times scenario includes your inventory because that's what it takes to run, and your cash. So that's literally the conversation I'm having with him right now, which is he was thinking he would double dip. He'd get to sell it for $4 million plus the $1.5 million inventory plus $1 million. So the conversation goes, well, then you need to run the business off less inventory, because a buyer's going to look at your last 3 years of tax returns and last 3 years of balance sheets and say, Dave, I know you tell me that you don't need $1.5 million worth of inventory, but you've had $1.5 million worth of inventory. Matter of fact, you've increased. Maybe 3 years ago you only have $1 million, and now you got $1.5 million. So you've got to start thinking ahead to say, well, he needs to start running that business off $500,000 in inventory, right? Because the new buyer is going to say, no, it looks like you need $1.5 million in inventory. So he needs to reduce his inventory and run it off of that. He needs to reduce the cash. He likes leaving cash in the business. We all do, in case there's emergencies and stuff like that, right? But you can't leave $1 million in there because that looks like that's what it costs to run your business. That's $1 million of working capital.
And
right?
I will tell you this: there, in the mergers and acquisitions world, and I say there's all these people out there right now that are coaching people how to buy businesses with no money down, which is a crock. I mean, I don't want to, because if you don't have money, you shouldn't be going into business. I'll just say it like that. But doesn't have to be all your money, but that $1 million that's in there, and many times can be the down payment that people use to acquire the business and then get an SBA loan. Yeah. I mean, that's 25% down right there. That $1 million could get that person financing so that that you can sell the company. So you still get the
seller, right? The seller doesn't really need $1 million in there. Maybe he needs 200,000 for whatever, 2 or 3 months worth of payroll, right? Then he needs to start running the business with only $200,000 in there. And if he has to, and you can do that because you can borrow the money from yourself. There's a whole tax thing you can do to borrow the money from yourself. But you need to start running the business with lower inventory and lower cash, working capital, because the buyer is going to look at the last 3 years worth of tax returns and say, gosh, this must be what it takes to run the business. $500,000 $1 million in inventory, $1.5 million in inventory, and $1 million in cash. And you're going to say, no, you only need $500,000 in inventory and 200,000 in cash. And I'm going to say, well, Dave, then why haven't you run it that way? I'm looking at your 3 years of tax returns and 3 years of balance. So that's literally the conversation we're having, but that's good. Is it worth selling this business? I would tell you, no, it isn't, because whoever's going to buy it is going to buy it for $4 million today, which would already include the inventory and the cash. 3 years from now, maybe we can do it in 2 years, right? Yeah. If we had the same type numbers, we could sell it for $4 million and only have $500,000 in inventory and only 200,000 in cash. How do we do that? Well, we sold off $1 million in inventory that he got to keep, and got rid of 800,000 in cash that he got to take out of the business. So that's literally a conversation I'm having with an owner right now.
So, the question, the episode is, should I sell my business? The questions, these are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself when you say, should I sell my business? I think the big picture is, what's the industry doing? What's your industry doing as a whole? Is there still market share that could be had? My electrical company, we got over 30% of the commercial and industrial marketplace in regions. And we knew, the companies we were competing against were billion-dollar companies, and we had a massive market share. It was arrogant on my part to think that I could continue to grow in a market that we had pretty much saturated. And if the only way to grow would have been to sell. So what I'm getting at is, when you ask yourself, should I sell my business? You've got to ask yourself, can you continue to grow by yourself?
Right.
Acquire market share without massive amounts of money? Can you, and is the industry going to carry your business another 10 or 15 or 20 years? So should I sell comes up. Well, the first question you got to ask yourself, can your business run without you? Right? That's
exactly right. Build it to sell it, whether you're going to sell it or not, right? Because the other corollary to that be, like you said, what would I do if I quit? Let's go back to the dentist. All right, I'm a dentist and I'm going to sell it. I'm only going to get 1.5 years worth of income. I can't retire off 1.5 years worth of income. I better be saving money along the way, right? Buying your office building and saving money along the way. But it could be that we could build it to sell it, right? And how would you build it to sell it? Well, we might hire an associate or 2 associates that can help me run it and let me take more time off, right? Because it could be that there's also the tax planning stuff that you and I do, talk about how to siphon money out of there. That'd be, all right, if I run my business well, I can work less and keep more, make more, work less is what you and I always say. Yeah. And I'll just do this for 10 more years, but I can do it for 10 years because I'm not busting my hump, right? I'm working 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, and I got the business humming, I don't have to be doubling the size of the business every 3 years. I could just be kind of status quo, because every year I'm taking money out of the business and building my nest egg over here, right? Because the owner's dilemma is what I call it would be, you're always going to get a year and a half worth of income when you're a dentist, right? So if I sold it today, I get a year and a half worth of income, more or less, 67% of revenue. But if I sold it 3 years from now, I'm getting a year and a half worth of income, 67% of revenue, right? So it's almost like, well, why would I sell it when I could just run it for another year and a half? So that's what I mean, the dilemma being, you could just, the same thing with other multiples. We talked about that 4 times multiple, the same thing. Why would I sell it when I could just run it for 4 more years and then sell it for 4 times cash flow, right? So I call that a dilemma, because it's always, well, I could just run it 3 more years. I could just run it 2 more years. I could just run it 5 more years.
Yeah, but eventually you do want to retire.
Eventually you do want to retire. So you got to build it to sell it. Go back to what you just said. Whether you're selling it or not, you've got to start building it as if you're going to sell it. And then once you built it that way, you might choose not to sell it today. You might choose not to sell it for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you got to build it to sell it, because that's the only way you would be able to sell it. And then, like I said, it might be so much fun because you're only doing your A+ activities you don't want to sell.
And what it does, I think the exercise in building it to sell it will allow you, when, let's say you do sell it, right, but the exercise of building something to sell it and then actually selling it, and then you're actually going to see it through the lens of the buyer. And when you see how that whole thing goes down, then all of a sudden now, when you go to maybe start another business, you realize from day one, I want to build this to sell it.
Yes.
And so you'll form a business very differently. What most people do is they, like you said, the landscaping and lawn cutting businesses, lawn maintenance businesses are really popular right now. Well, what most people do is they go buy a lawnmower, a trailer, and an edger, and all the stuff they need, and they start a business, and they're in the truck for years, and they never really get out. But the smart ones, what they do is they're out of the truck in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And what they're doing is they've now got a salespeople who go out and get more commercial clients, and they continue to grow, which keeps their laborers busy. And I call them laborers because they're workers, but in that type of business, the reason that's such appealing business to invest in is because the ability to train a worker to do their job is not that hard. You're cutting lawns. I don't want to imply that it's all that.
I understand.
I'm being cautious, but that's the point. Why is a dentist only get 1.5 times their income? Is because you're the dentist. You do the work in most cases. So if you want to sell your business as a dentist, wouldn't it be better to have 2 other dentists working in your office?
Yes.
Now you've got a business worth selling.
Yes, and that's exactly right. What you just reminded me of was talking about the build it to sell it, and you're talking about I was thinking about the dentist, going back to the dentist, and I lost my train of thought. We were talking about dentists selling it, building it to sell it. Separating the cash flow. I just had a conversation with one of my other clients. Literally, that's why I was late to your call. And it's separating the cash flow and cleaning up the books, right? The books need to be clean for 3 years because the buyer's going to look back 2 or 3 years, right? So you need to separate your personal and your business expenses as best you can so you can clean it. This is actually a succession. It's going from the parents to the child, but the parents' income and expenses are so intertwined. The son doesn't even understand the cash flow of the business and how much can he afford to buy his parents out, because we don't have a clear picture of the cash flow from the business, right? Yeah. So you got to start cleaning up your books. Now, there's a lot of tax benefit that we always talk about, that 94% of business owners are overpaying their taxes because they're not utilizing the tax expenses and tax loopholes, tax write-offs that are available to business owners. So understand that. But in general, you want to kind of separate your personal and your business expenses because you need clean books. But that also makes it clean books if a new buyer comes in too, right? You don't want to have your...
So what does clean books really mean? It means sellers' discretionary earnings are easy to tell what they are.
Yeah.
And the easier it is, because ultimately, when we talk about multiples, like, should I sell my business? Well, like you said, what business are you in and what's the multiple? Well, the multiple is typically a multiple of your seller's discretionary earnings and company profits. That's usually what determines the value of a business. I mean, there's other assets as well that.
Well, and it's a great way to think about that. Everybody thinks that somebody's going to come along and offer you $10 million for your business. And they're not going to offer you that. What they're offering you is some multiple of their earnings because they're going to use your cash flow to pay yourself, to buy you out, right? So they're not going to say 10 million bucks. They're going to say, well, he makes $500,000, so I'm paying him $1 million. That's 2 times cash flow. So I can literally pay you back in 2 years, and now I'm starting to make $500,000, right? That's what they're not just making up some number out of the air, $10 million. They're doing it on a multiple of your earnings, your profit, what you make as the owner. They call it seller discretionary earnings because we know most business owners run between $50,000 to $150,000. You know, they'll have their car in there, they'll have their cell phones in there. We can take that out and quantify that as seller discretionary earnings, you know, because you put your car in the business. We know that. Everybody does that. But that's in that seller discretionary earnings. If I didn't have my car in there, I would be getting that cash flow. And that's the cash flow I'm going to use to buy you out. So you're exactly right. They're going to buy you out based on what you make, right? So we've talked about this before, good revenue versus bad revenue. So you've got $1 million revenue business, but you're only making $50,000. Yeah, you've got $1 million business, but how profitable is that? You're only making $50,000, $75,000, whatever that number is. I don't care that you make $1 million because I'm only going to buy you based on the multiple of your earnings. Exactly. That $50,000, I want to pay you 3 times, 5 times that number, not the revenue number. They'll quote revenue numbers in the TV and in the press all the time. That's not what the numbers are based off of. They're really based off of a cash flow. It's just easy to say, oh, it was $1 million in revenue and we bought it for $1.5 million, so it's a 1.5 times revenue number. It is, but that's not how the buyer looked at it.
It's not how they got there. It's not how they got there.
That's not how they got there. They got there based on how much seller discretionary earnings, how much the owner basically makes and runs expenses through, and how much he makes, seller discretionary earnings, cash flow, whatever you want to call it, a multiple of that, because most people want to get paid back in 3 to 5 years, right? That's 3 times cash flow, that's 5 times cash flow. That's a general rule of thumb for most industries. I know there are tech companies which are higher. SaaS companies are much higher, 10 times, 12 times multiple. There's also size. The bigger your company, the bigger the multiple, right? So there's insurance companies right now, benefits insurance companies. Those are selling at 7 times earnings, 7 times cash flow. That's a lot of money. Financial advisory shops, 3 to 5 times cash flow. However, if you're $1 billion advisory, you're selling at 10 or 11 times cash flow. So
dog food is extremely high.
There you go. Right.
There are, but let's call it addiction industry, which dog food is considered in that. Cereal. So you come out with but we're talking about, should I sell my business? Well, let's say you were in the cereal business and you made a really good cereal, a really unique cereal, and you have a big following and you're making a really good living, but you're working a lot, but it's not like the company couldn't run without you. It's running very successfully. And you're selling, you got 1 million customers or whatever, but you realize in order for me to get market share, I either got to sell a portion of my business or I got to raise some money. I really got to raise them. That might be the time to be looking at, hey, maybe I should at least go out on the market and consider selling this. And because sometimes they'll keep you on and pay you your nice income, maybe not exactly what you're making, but they'll give you a piece of a bigger pie because now it's a bigger company with one more brand.
Well, that's private equity, right? That's what private equity does. So I've got many friends in private equity, and they bought a tarp company, right? So tarps, those blue tarps, they put on top of construction trucks, they put on people's roofs when the thing, when a tree falls on the roof, right? It's a tarp company, right? And so they bought the tarp company because they've got other markets they can sell it to. So this tarp company was very regional. Well, they've got connections, so we could sell it in a bigger region, right? They've got other connections. They could sell it to a different market. He's only selling in construction. I can sell it in construction and retail and commercial because we've got commercial and retail connections, right? So that's exactly what private equity does, is they're going to help you expand the business because they have other connections, not just money, right? It might money, but also other connections, right?
Yeah.
That'll help you grow the business. But going back to should I sell the business? It might be, gosh, usually they pay me 3 times cash loan. For some reason, they're offering me 10 times. Well, yeah, you should look at it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's also times like that. But there's also, like you said before. So I'll go back to, if you're making $1 million, just whatever the numbers. I'm saying $1 million a year, and they're going to pay you $4 million. That's 4 times earnings. Well, gosh, that sounds great to get $4 million, but really, you can only live off of 4 to 5% of that, so that's really only $200,000. So, gosh, I'm making $1 million a year, and I'm really got $4 million bucks. But then by the way, you got to pay taxes on that 20%, so you're really only getting 3.2 million. And then you can only spend 4 to 5%. Oh my gosh, I can't live off of $200,000. I've been living off $1 million. So you got to think about that. Is it enough money, right? Or is it, like you said, what would I do? Hey, they're going to pay. I'm making $1 million a year. I'm having a good time. I built the business to sell it, right? Because the business building to sell it, I think, is the key, right? Because then you can make a clear judgment, right? A lot of times people sell because they're old and tired. I don't mean that in a way. I just mean, oh, I'm tired of it. I've been dealing with employees. I'm dealing with the stress of running the business, right? And if you're dealing with the stress of running the business, perhaps you're not running the business as well as it could be run, right? And so not only to increase the sellability of the business, if you fix those headaches for yourself, you're fixing those headaches for the next buyer because you're building it to sell it. So, but a lot of people just say, I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with people. I'm tired of dealing with employees. I'm tired of dealing with angry customers. I'm just fed up. It's time to sell. I totally respect that, right? Even so, you still would need to build it to sell it. You're going to have to fix. It's kind of like I use this when I moved into this house, we said 2.5 years ago, right? And it was like, what do you have to do to sell it? You got to fix all those little irritating punch list items, right? And so we fix all those things. And they're not really a lot of money. They're just the pain in the butt, right? But then once I fixed all those things, I was like, well, damn it. I wish I would have fixed those things 2 years ago so I could have enjoyed it, right? Because I fixed all the little irritating things, the little crack in the window or the door that squeaked or whatever the issue, because you know you're going to have to fix those things before you sell your house, right? Why wouldn't I have just fixed it up a year ago, 2 years ago, so I could have enjoyed it and then sell my house? It's the exact same thing with a business. You know the irritating things in the business right now. You already know them. You need to fix those things, right? Just like you would when you fix them before you sell your house, right? You got roof leak, you got to fix a roof leak. You got a water stain in the girl's bedroom. You got to fix the water stain, right? You know that about your business. You are going to have to fix those before you sell the house. You're going to have to fix those before you sell your business. Why not get started on it now? And then you can enjoy it. And then maybe make that decision, not based off exhaustion. Oh, I'm just tired of dealing with these things. You make it based off of a healthier space, right? You're in a great, I fixed all the issues that were irritating the crap out of me. Now I get to enjoy them, and then I can decide. That's really what our mastermind is, right? That's what we do. We talk about the roadmap and the support system, right? We need your commitment. 3 things to be successful: commitment, roadmap, support system, right? We got the roadmap and the support system so you can build a business, so you can sell it. You got to have your commitment. So why not fix it up now? Just like moving a house, why not just fixing the punch list item now for your business? Use your mastermind group, use your coaching group to do that. And then you can decide, hey, I built this business to sell it. Now is it time to sell it? Or is it fun because I've gotten rid of the irritating?
And one of the things, the final thing I'll say is when you have a business should be a tool that allows you to build wealth.
Yes.
By the time you sell your business, you shouldn't need the money. If you do it right, you shouldn't need the money. Didn't say you didn't want it, but one of the best things when you go to sell your business is, I don't need that income. So when the offer comes out and it's fair, you can say, and that's what a mastermind will do for you. Our mastermind is, we have that in mind. As you build your business, you're going to isolate cash flow so you can eliminate debt and build wealth. I mean, that's what it's really about. Have more time off and the money to enjoy it. So.
Yeah, exactly right. And so literally, so watch, our irresistible offer is we can find any business owner $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in their business without spending $1 more on advertising or marketing. So if you're going to sell your business, gosh, wouldn't an extra 50,000 in cash, 100,000 in cash be valuable for you to sell it? The answer is yes. They're going to sell it for 3 to 5 times that. If you're not selling your business, wouldn't it be great to have an extra 50,000, 75, $100,000 to spend? Yes, absolutely, it would be, right? So that's a valuable call to action. Our call to action is find $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in your business, because it's valuable to you whether you're going to sell the business or whether you're going to keep the business. It's valuable to generate more cash flow, to help you build that wealth, or to get a multiple on it when you sell it.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that, if you want us to do that Profit Accelerator session with you, just reach out to us at matt@profitabilitymd.com, dave@profitabilitymd.com. You can find us anywhere on the internet under Profitability MD, whether it's wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us at YouTube, Profitability MD. But great show today, Matt. I think
this is great. Episode 127. Should I sell my business? So build it to sell it, whether you're going to sell it or not, and then you could answer the question.
There you go.
All right, man. This is fun.
Take care.
See you.